Hi, Carrie here. Today, I'm going to explain an Australian cult thriller, The Clinic, which is the most thrilling and darkest movie Carrie has narrated so far. At the same time, the movie is full of suspense. 6 pregnant women are locked up in an abandoned factory, their children are missing, and they game over one by one. Who exactly is controlling them? What is the purpose? The video also provides a brain-burning detail at the end for your analysis. The story took place in 1979. Cameron and her wife Beth, who was pregnant and about to give birth, were driving to their parents' house to spend Christmas together. A large, dilapidated car was gradually approaching them. While parallel to them, the driver of the dilapidated car deliberately jerked the steering wheel, directly squeezed them out of the road, and then left. Cameron and Beth were shocked. Since the car was running out of gas, they decided to stay in the neighborhood for one night. The innkeeper looked odd and asked, "You were just passing through, right?" When he got a positive answer, he said, "Great. Look at Beth standing outside the door," he said to Cameron, somewhat lewdly, "Is that your wife? She is beautiful." Cameron was a little offended, but still chose to stay a night. Cameron and Beth were lying on a chair by the pool to rest, when a man and a woman came in. They seemed to come over specifically to take a look, and a few seconds later, they hurriedly left. In the evening, Beth, who had fallen asleep in a daze on the recliner, dreamed again of the scene that had appeared so many times in her dreams. A baby lying on a puddle of blood, crying, with the Greek number 118 underneath him. Cameron reassured her that it was normal to have strange dreams during pregnancy. Beth was anxious and felt that it was not a normal dream. They went back to their room and Cameron comforted Beth to sleep. In the middle of the night, Cameron couldn't sleep. So he left a note for Beth to go out and look for food. When Cameron left, the innkeeper was watching TV and looked at his watch, as if he was waiting for something. The surrounding restaurants were closed, and Cameron soon returned to the hotel. But he found that Beth was missing. Cameron wanted to ask the innkeeper, while the innkeeper had already returned to his room. Cameron waited until 4 o'clock in the morning. Beth still did not return. So, he chose to call the police. The police also looked a bit odd. The police woke up the innkeeper, who said that the only guests staying here were Cameron and his wife. And he didn't notice anything unusual. Cameron took out a picture of his wife and showed it to the police, and the innkeeper came forward with an obscene look on his face. Cameron was angry and said to the police, "He was creepy when we got here. He is plotting against my wife. And I demand a search of the entire hotel." The police officer said, "There are no signs of a struggle, and since your wife has not been missing for more than 48 hours, I can't search the place, and I don't need to report the case." Cameron was thrilled to hear this. He said, "This is bullshit, he definitely knows something." At this point, the innkeeper took Beth's picture and tried to put it in the delivery room, which completely angered Cameron. Cameron grabbed the innkeeper's neck while the police twisted Cameron's arms directly from behind and knocked Cameron out with 2 punches. On the other side, a burst of pain stimulated Beth to wake up. She was lying naked in a bathtub filled with ice cubes. The long cut on her stomach had been sewn up, but the baby in her belly was missing. She got up with difficulty and put on her clothes, which had been deliberately prepared for her, and was printed with the Greek number 8. Every room here had the same bathtub. Apparently, she was not alone in this situation. Beth stumbled out of the building, which resembled a large factory. Not far away, there was a high wire fence with locked doors. She couldn't climb up the fence. Beth tried to dig a hole in the ground, but apparently that didn't work either. She soon fainted and passed out. When she woke up again in a daze, she was surrounded by 3 women wearing the same clothes and marked with different Greek numbers. The numbers on them were 7, 6, and 5. All 4 women had no idea how they got here or how to get out. The only thing they had in common was that their children were missing. What puzzled them was that if the bad guys' goal was to get the children, they could just kill them, so why did they let them live? Who did all this? What did they want? They were puzzled. At that moment, they suddenly heard a woman's scream. They followed the scream and found a woman with an open abdominal wound. The number on her clothes was 3. A closer inspection showed that her wounds had been sewn up and torn open. There was no blood on her hands, so someone else had obviously done it. She was dying and said, "Whichever of you survives, please take care of my baby, he's blue." With that, she game over. Cut to Cameron, who was taken to the police station. He was so desperate to save his wife that he grabbed the policeman's gun, forced him to unlock his handcuffs. He then handcuffed the policeman to a telephone pole and drove to the hotel. Cut to the factory, the four women wondered what the woman whose clothes marked 3 meant by the baby is blue. Is his baby's skin blue, or maybe her baby had a low body temperature? Although they didn't know what the baby is blue meant, they assumed that the child of that woman was still alive, so the children of them might also be alive. After discussing the matter, the four of them decided to search all the rooms to see if the children was still there. The four of them split into 2 groups. Ivy, whose clothes marked 5, and Allison, whose clothes marked 6, were responsible to search the 2nd floor. Beth and Veronica, whose clothes marked 7, were responsible to search the ground floor. Meanwhile, in another room, there was a table with information on each of them and a monitor that could see their movements. In a room on the 2nd floor, Allison found a Polaroid camera and slung it around her partner's neck. They then split up. Allison got a packet of sugar from a cupboard. Beth found a rubber doll's head on the ground floor, which was particularly like the one she had often dreamed of. She also found many photos in a drawer. Apparently, they were not the only victims. Ivy was continuing her search upstairs. Suddenly, the lamp in her hands was dropped. In the darkness, there seemed to be a woman standing behind her, and then everyone heard a scream from her. When they ran over, Ivy was lying on the ground, her wounds similarly torn. Veronica took out a green tag from her wound. They found a photograph in the Polaroid camera of a woman wearing the same clothes as them, with the number 4 marked on her. Cut to Cameron. He drove back to the hotel and beat up the innkeeper. The innkeeper told him that Beth had been taken to an abandoned pharmaceutical factory and gave him the exact directions to get there. Immediately after hearing this, Cameron ignored him and drove to the factory. Cut to the factory. The 3 remaining women found 6 milk bottles. In the next room, they found 6 more babies in cages, but the cages were locked. It was clearly their child, but they could not recognize which one was their own. On closer inspection, they found that each baby had a tag tied to the foot with the different colors. One of the babies had a green tag attached, the same color as the tag removed from the woman marked with 5. Seeing this, they thought of "my baby is blue" that the dead woman had said. They believed that she had seen the tag inside herself. In other words, the tag inside each mother was the same tag on each baby's foot. As long as they knew what color tag was inside their bellies, they would know which one was their child. Veronica said, "I can take you to the veterinary office. We're equipped with simple medical equipment. We can cut the stitches and remove the label from the belly. Then we can find our baby." So, the 3 women rushed to the veterinary office. Cut to Cameron. He followed the route specified by the innkeeper and drove off. Clearly, he had been tricked. There were blocking strips in the road, causing the car to fly straight up. Cameron game over. Cut to factory. On the way to the veterinary office, they encountered 2 vicious dogs. They ran apart after being frantically chased by the vicious dogs. Beth and Veronica jumped into a deep pit before the dogs left. Allison hid in an iron barrel before the dogs left. At night, Beth struggled to climb out of the deep pit. She tried to pull Veronica out of the pit, but with an injured leg, Veronica could not climb out. Beth then went nearby to find something to get Veronica out. At that moment, Allison came out from the barrel. She groped her way to a bullpen, but was attacked. The man in the monitoring room drew a slash on her file, and she was eliminated. Beth, who was trying to figure out how to save Allison, spotted a lighted hut. Entering the house, she saw a picture of a woman. Then she heard a noise outside the window. Looking out, she found a man pushing the body of Allison on a cart. The man entered the house and Beth hid. The man seemed to see her and he muttered, "You're in my house and Mrs. Hippet won't allow a woman here. She will be angry. She will scold me." The man repeated these words over and over again. Apparently, he was mental abnormality. Beth came out slowly and took out the sugar she had found in the factory to coax him. From the intermittent conversation, she learned that the man's name was Duncan, and that the woman in the photograph was Mrs. Hippet. Beth noticed a key hanging around Duncan's neck and asked him if it was the key to the cage. Without answering, Duncan immediately fled. Beth started to chase him. After catching him, Beth threw Duncan to the ground, took off the key and hung it around her neck. Then she found some metal cages and saved Veronica. They helped each other to the veterinary office. On the way, as they were bandaging their injured legs in a dilapidated car, a large truck crashed into them. They rushed out of the truck and escaped. In the darkness, a woman got out of the truck. Finally, they arrived at the veterinary office. Veronica was removing the stitches from the wound and took out the tag. With the assistance of Beth. Suddenly, a sound was made as if someone came in. Then the light went out. Beth went to find the switch and Veronica continued to remove the stitches. That's when the woman marked with 4 appeared once again. She brutally pulled the tag out of Veronica, which was yellow. Beth heard the shouting and rushed in. After a fierce struggle, that woman was injured and escaped. Beth went to the rescue Veronica, but due to the injuries, she game over. In a bathroom, Beth found the woman marked with 4. She had torn herself open and was holding the tags tightly. Beth picked up 4 tags from the floor, blue, red, green and yellow. If Beth knew the color of the tag of that woman, she would know which one was her child. At this point, the woman put her hand on the sewer and said, "From the beginning, I was told that if I wanted to take my child, I had to figure out which one was mine first. To find out which was my child, I had to send the other 5 mothers to the heaven." And grabbed the tags from their bellies. "Now, I failed. You must promise to take good care of my child, or I will throw the tag away." Beth hastily agreed. The woman marked with 4 game over. In the monitoring room, the file of the woman marked with 4 was also drawn with a slash. Now, only Beth was left. The men in the surveillance room got up and left. Beth took the 5 tags and went to her baby. When she returned to that room, she found that all the cages were empty and the children had all disappeared. At that moment, the lights suddenly went out. And someone came in with a torch. At this point, the car that squeezed Cameron off the road at the beginning of the film pulled out of the factory and sped away. The innkeeper and police officer who appeared earlier opened the car door and carried the unconscious Beth down. When Beth woke up again, she found herself chained to the floor. There were 3 people in the room next to her, and they seemed to be signing some agreements. The people standing opposite Beth were the buyer, the same couple who had visited Beth at the hotel. The baby was carried to the buyer's wife and the tag on her little foot was purple. It was obvious that she was Beth's child. The buyer's wife seemed very pleased with the baby and kept saying, "This is the fittest baby ever, this is the fittest baby ever." The woman in black is Hippid, who said to Beth, "I'm very lucky to find you, Beth. Sometimes, while the designated mother doesn't survive to the end, my clients pay to choose a child from 6 different mothers. You beat the designated mother and became the final winner. This is the only place in the world where adopters can assess the parents of their babies before buying. Here, buyers can pick babies from mothers who are lawyers, doctors, athletes, etc." She then gestured to the buyer to shoot Beth. Before shooting, the buyer reassured Beth and said, "Your baby will be happy with us." Just then, Duncan appeared and pointed his shotgun at the buyer and his wife. Duncan crazily said, "I don't want to scrub the floor, I don't want to clean up the place." Hippid ordered Duncan to shoot Beth. Beth said to Duncan, "I gave you candy, you have to save me." As Duncan hesitated, the buyer suddenly fired his gun. And Duncan fired back. Duncan and the buyer fell to the ground at the same time. Hippid picked up the baby and left. With the key she had taken from Duncan still around her neck, Beth used it to unlock the chain and grabbed the shotgun and chased Hippid out. She found her baby in one room, with holding the baby in her arms. Beth wailed and cried. Suddenly, Shepard's voice was behind him again. Beth quickly picked up the gun and turned around. Hippid said, "She has eyes. You have grown into a young and beautiful woman. Your parents would be proud of you." Then Hippid talked about Beth's parents. Beth asked in surprise, "How do you know about them?" Hippid opened the file in her hand and said, "You were born on 12 May, 1950. Your birth mother was Linda Hayes. Your adoptive parents, Roger and Judy, could not legally adopt because of their criminal records and had to buy you from me." Beth didn't believe Hippid. So, Hippid threw Beth the file with pictures of her adoptive parents and birth mother and the Greek number 118, which she had often dreamed about. Hippid continued, "I vaguely remember your birth mother, a very strong woman, who did not cry at that time." Beth was so angry that tried to shoot Hippid, but the gun was out of bullets. Beth rushed forward, with the knife she had hidden on her body, and cut a long gash in Hippid's body just like the gashes in her and the other mother's belly. Then Beth asked her how she felt. Then, Hippid game over. Finally, the police rescued Beth and her baby. At the end of the film, Beth took the baby to visit her mother's grave, where the headstone reads, Linda Hayes, born in February 11, 1923, died at May 5, 1950. There was a bouquet of flowers next to the headstone. Beth asked the old man who worked at the cemetery who sent the flowers. The old man said, a man from a nearby town whose wife disappeared when she was pregnant and about to give birth. Then he put up a headstone here. Beth said goodbye to the old man and took the children with her as she walked towards the town. Plot inventory. The dark and perverse old woman, Hippid, is a ruthless trafficker. She commits her crimes in partnership with the local police and innkeeper. If there is a buyer, they will take 6 pregnant women who are in labor at the same time and perform a cesarean section on them to take out the child. The children are tied with tags on their feet, and the corresponding tags are sealed in the mother's belly. The buyer will designate a mother and tell her that she can take the child by killing the other 5 mothers, taking out the 5 tags, and using the elimination method to find her own child. This is actually a test to see if the designated mother is the strongest. If the designated mother completes the task, her child is chosen. This time, the feisty Beth wins the designated mom, who is number 4. So, her baby is chosen. Surprisingly, Beth defeats the buyer in Hippid and manages to save her baby. She also learns that this is how her adoptive parents took her away from her birth mother 29 years ago. She finds her birth mother's headstone and then sets out to find her birth father. There is a detail in the film. Hippid tells Beth that she is born on 12 May 1950. But the headstone shows that her birth mother died on 5 May 1950. The question is, how did Beth's birth mother die a week before she was born? Is something wrong with the plot? Do you know the reason? Please share with me in the comments section. Alright, that's all for the video. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Thanks for your support. See you next time.